Welcome everyone to the Township Council Workshop Meeting Monday, September 13, 2021. This meeting is now called to order. Councilman Vanchery, please lead us in the flag salute. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Mrs. Kraus, please read the statement of public notice.
Take notice that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with NJSA 10:4-10 as follows. Notice of the meeting was prominently posted on the bulletin board at the municipal building located at 225 Main Street, Little Falls, New Jersey on July 22nd, 2021. A copy of the notice was faxed to the North Jersey Herald and News and the Record on the same date. Additionally, a copy of the notice was filed in the office of the Township Clerk on said date. This meeting is being conducted under the circumstances surrounding the COVID-19 health situation. Only 25 members of the public will be allowed to attend the meeting in person. A link and a telephone number to join the meeting virtually can be accessed on the Township website at www.lfmj.com. Electronic provisions have been established for the public to participate during the public comment portion of the meeting.
Thank you, Mrs. Kraus. At this time, please call the roll.
Councilmember Hablitz.
Present.
Councilmember Kawadi.
Present.
Councilmember Sieber.
Present.
Councilmember Vanchery.
Present.
Council President Scoba.
Present. Let the record show that Mr. Ron Stell, the head of our Department of Public Works, is in presence. And also Mr. Counselor Friend, is that correct? Friend is sitting in for Mr. Wenzel. Mayor?
Thank you, Council President. Before I begin with the proclamations this evening, I want to give a brief update about Hurricane Ida that struck this area on September 1st of this year. And as many people know,
She said back on. We're back on. Mhm.
Bear with us, everyone. We just had a little technical difficulty. Hopefully we are very well. All right. I believe we're back on. I'm going to back up a little bit and just move a little bit quickly through some of these things that I had just briefly discussed. I was thanking all of our departments, our fire department, our police department, our DPW, for everything that they did, mobilizing so quickly during and after the storm. As far as FEMA will be at the Little Falls Civic Center from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. on weekdays and from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. on weekends. If you did sustain damage from the flood, I encourage you to visit them there, see if they're able to help you in any way, and get the help that they can provide. So make your way there. There have not been very long lines right now, so make your way there sooner rather than later, because I understand a number of years ago, the lines began getting a little bit longer as they remained open over time. So if you do need some assistance, I would encourage you to get there sooner rather than later. I started talking about some cleaning supplies and the donations that individuals had made to the neighbors in town that needed help. And it was incredible to see the support that our neighbors had for other neighbors in donating cleaning supplies and clothing and various things that might be needed for those who are affected. And I want to thank everybody for rallying so quickly to help our neighbors who are in need. Our DPW, as I started talking about, has been doing just an incredible job. Trying to keep up with cleaning our streets, getting the bulk items removed. By way of brief update with our DPW, when the garbage trucks come around on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, the regular trucks are picking up the regular garbage items, not the bulk items. We call the flood damaged items bulk items. Those are being picked up by different trucks at different times. So some people may have seen their garbage cans emptied without their flood damaged items being picked up. Please be patient. They are making their way around. They are trying the best they can to get all of the bulk items picked up. I am going to announce now and be sending out additional updates over the next couple of days. This upcoming Wednesday, which would have been a commingled pickup day, I'm going to be canceling the commingled pickup so that our garbage contractor can continue removing bulk items from the street. That means last week cardboard was canceled. This week we will have a cancellation of commingled, which leads us to October 22nd's pickup. We'll be back to a regular cardboard pickup. So we will have skipped one of each. Next Wednesday, cardboard will be picked up, but bulk items will be picked up this Wednesday. So please do not put out your commingled items unless you want to bring them in later in the night still full. So again, I'm announcing that now. I will send out an email blast. I will do additional updates over the next day or two as far as that goes. As far as structures that were damaged here in Little Falls, we are up to about 150 homes that had minor damage here in town. There are 35 homes that had substantial damage, meaning up to about $50,000 in total damage, and 11 properties that had severe damage, which could include up to about $600,000 in total loss. The township of Little Falls was hit hard again. All I can ask and all I can say is that continue to be kind to your neighbors. Continue to offer the help over the next couple of weeks. There were a whole number of areas of town that were affected. Again, if you have not gotten help yet from FEMA, please do. If you need help and have not reached out, please do. Again, I encourage everybody to get the help they need. If you need counseling, reach out. We can assist in getting you counseling if you have issues as a result of the storm. I'm going to be moving on now to the items on this evening's agenda that I have some brief updates about, and then I will be moving on to the proclamations that we have to read this evening. The very first agenda item that I want to address has to do with our fire department. There is an ordinance on this evening. It is ordinance 1417. I'm going to be asking that the council again table the vote on 1417 until the October 4th, is it October 4th? Yes, October 4th meeting, where hopefully a vote will be taken at that meeting, amending and adopting a new ordinance with respect to our fire department pursuant to ordinance 1417. The reason for that is, as I indicated in my prior meeting, a couple of weeks or several months ago now, we met with the fire department and we introduced an ordinance. I've had an opportunity since then to meet with the fire department to discuss some of the concerns that they've had. We are working out the final kinks in the ordinance, and we'll hopefully have a resolution for an ordinance being adopted in the upcoming month. I want to allow them appropriate time to draft their bylaws to conform with the ordinance. And that is why we are giving them an additional now 3 weeks in order to do that, so that we can all be on the same page once this ordinance is adopted. So I'm going to be asking that the council table that ordinance this evening. With respect to ordinance 1425, which has to do with marijuana regulations here in town. Ordinance 1425, some will see, is modifying an ordinance that was just adopted a couple of weeks ago. And one might say, why are you already amending an ordinance that was just adopted a couple of weeks ago? And the fact of the matter is, the state required that municipalities adopt an ordinance by a certain deadline, having to do with marijuana in the state of New Jersey. They set a very tight deadline for the time that they actually submitted or actually published their regulations with respect to marijuana. The township was proactive in passing an ordinance regarding marijuana in the municipality, and we did so ahead of the regulations actually being released. Because the regulations were somewhat unknown at the time that we passed the original ordinance, and they have now been released, we now have an understanding of what the regulations entail, and it seems best to this municipality to now either permit some of the things that we thought were initially being prohibited, and to potentially allow our initial ordinance to allow or dictate the number of cannabis facilities that are operating here in the municipality based upon the spacing. And I will be a little more specific in what I'm saying, and that is in particular, one of the things that was prohibited in the initial ordinance was micro businesses here in town with respect to cannabis. And initially, there was no regulation or was no real definition of what a micro cannabis or a business entailed. We've now come to learn it's a business that has only a handful of employees and is under 2,500 square feet. To me, it sounds foolish to prohibit something like a micro business here in town, which is a very niche and smaller operation than what some of these larger facilities may entail. And it seems that Little Falls would prefer to have some of these micro businesses in town rather than gigantic operations that are operating here. Again, now that we know what that means, it seems like we should allow them in town. And that is really the reason that this council is being asked to review an ordinance that was just adopted a couple of weeks ago. They also, again, have a very small number of employees. Something that was always a concern was bringing too much traffic into Little Falls. And this is one way, again, to limit that. So that was one of the big changes to this ordinance. The other was the number of each type of license that the township would allow. And in this current ordinance, it was being limited to 2 of each type of license in the municipality. And it seemed foolish to limit each license to 2, because we may have 4 of one license and 0 of another. But again, allowing one to establish itself within close proximity to another is already prohibited under the initial ordinance that the Township Council adopted. So those are really the big modifications to 1425 that this council is being asked to adopt this evening, or I should say introduce this evening. Now, finally, 20 minutes into the meeting here, we're able to move on to the proclamations that I have to read this evening. There are 3 listed on the agenda, but there is actually a 4th that I will be reading. And the 4th one that I will be reading this evening is for National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month proclamation. So to start with, the proclamation recognizing Library Card Sign-Up Month. And it reads, whereas libraries are an essential resource in communities across New Jersey, offering accessible information to the general public and serving as centers of knowledge and opportunity. And whereas libraries are a fundamental part of our schools, employment, and society, disseminating facts and ensuring history is preserved. And whereas, in addition to boasting book-lined shelves, libraries also offer periodicals, audiobooks, and ebooks, making the path to reading more accessible than ever before. And whereas, since 1987, Library Card Sign-Up Month has been held each September to mark the beginning of the school year. During the month, the American Library Association and Librarians Unite in a national effort to ensure every child signs up for their own library card. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor James Belford Damiano, on behalf of the Little Falls Council, do hereby proclaim September 2021 as Library Card Sign-Up Month in the Township of Little Falls. The second proclamation we have this evening is the proclamation recognizing Hispanic Heritage Month. And it reads, whereas Hispanic Heritage Month is an opportunity to celebrate the rich cultural traditions and honor the significant achievements of our Hispanic and Latino American communities. And whereas Hispanics are the largest ethnic minority group in the country and make valuable contributions to the Commonwealth in business, industry, government, education, the sciences, arts, and faith. And whereas Hispanic and Latino Americans have made enormous contributions to our diverse society by sharing their talents, culture, traditions, and their deep connection to family values and a commitment to faith and a desire to live the American dream. And whereas we honor Hispanic Americans and the many contributions which strengthens our society as a whole. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor James Belford Damiano, on behalf of the Little Falls Township Council, do hereby proclaim September 15th through October 15th, 2021 as Hispanic Heritage Month in the Township of Little Falls. The third proclamation this evening is a proclamation recognizing Constitution Day. And it reads, whereas Constitution Day, also known as Citizenship Day, is celebrated each year on September 17th to commemorate the formation and signing of the United States Constitution. And whereas the Constitution serves as the basis for U.S. law and guarantees Americans their essential rights. And whereas the Constitution is distributed throughout 3 branches of government and it outlines the process for change in the future. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor James Belford Damiano, on behalf of the Little Falls Township Council, do hereby proclaim September 17th, 2021 as Constitution Day in the Township of Little Falls. And finally, the fourth and final proclamation this evening, again, which was not on the agenda, is National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month proclamation. Whereas September is known around the United States as National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month and is intended to help promote awareness surrounding each of the suicide prevention resources available to us and our community. And whereas suicidal thoughts can affect anyone regardless of age, gender, race, orientation, income level, religion, or background. And whereas, according to the CDC, each year more than 41,000 people die by suicide. And whereas suicide is the 10th leading cause of death among adults in the U.S. and the second leading cause of death among people aged 10 to 24. And whereas every member of our community should understand that throughout life struggles, we all need the occasional reminder that we are all silently fighting our own battles. And whereas I encourage all residents to take the time to inquire as to the well-being of their family, friends, and neighbors, to genuinely convey their appreciation for them, which may go a long way in helping someone realize that suicide is not the answer. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor James Belford Damiano, on behalf of the Township Council, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2021 as National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month in the Township of Little Falls. Council President, that's all that I have this evening, unless the council has any questions for me.
Thank you, Mayor. Does the council have any questions or comments for the mayor's report? Mayor, I have a question. FEMA is going to be how long here? Do you know? Mayor, how long will FEMA be here? Do we know?
So FEMA has signed at this point a 90-day contract with us here in Little Falls to utilize the facility. They are going to be playing it by ear a little bit, whether or not they actually need the full 90 days. They also are permitted to extend that with our approvals. So at this point, they will be here for at least some substantial period of time. So you don't need to rush there tomorrow. But again, I would encourage people to get there sooner rather than later if they do need some assistance.
And Mayor, is this also for other residents besides Little Falls that they can go to the Civic Center for FEMA, or is that just for Little Falls residents?
No, it is indeed open. This is actually open to not only Little Falls or New Jersey residents. This is open to anyone across the nation because it is a federal site. So anyone in the nation who is affected and needs FEMA's assistance is able to appear there.
Thank you, Mayor.
Council President, I was gonna say real quick, can I ask the
Hold
mayor-
on one second. Be right with you. Mr. Stout,
Campbell, Mr. Campbell,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Campbell.
I'm sorry, Mr. Campbell. Mr. Campbell, the dumpsters, when do you think they could be, when do you think they could get emptied?
We can call every day.
And that's, do we know the reason is that there's no reason where to dump the garbage? Is there a backup for some reason? Thank you. Councilmember Vanchery?
Mayor, can you, maybe we can put this out on the blast. You can ask Mr. Miller. Last week with changing the pickup from the recycling, obviously the garbage, saw a lot of people on social media say, I didn't get the alert. I didn't know. Even though you put it on your page and we blast it out. Can we put out something to remind residents to sign up for the town email blast? Because, I think all of us responded at some point. I know myself, Councilwoman Hablitz did, Councilwoman Sieber did, to remind people that the mayor put out a communication. Can we just put something out just to remind residents to sign up, of course, with a code red, and then the same thing with the email blast so that they're aware of all the updates that are coming through from the mayor. So Mayor, if that's something you can do as well.
I continually encourage people to sign up for our email blast. The problem is the best way to encourage people to sign up for the email blast is through the email blast. So it's difficult in that sense. But yes, this year with my annual tax letter that should be going out any day now, I intend to encourage residents to sign up for the email blast. Those that may not be tech savvy or may not regularly be on the internet, sending them a hard copy of this information is something I intend to do.
Okay, thanks.
See no other questions and comments, we'll move forward. Can I have a motion to approve the mayor's appointment to the Municipal Alliance? That is Andrea Marcasanti. Do I have a motion for that appointment?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Sieber,
Second.
second by Councilmember Kawadi. Mrs. Kraus, please call the roll for the appointment of a one-year term on the Municipal Alliance.
Councilmember Hablitz,
Yes.
Councilmember Kawadi,
Yes.
Councilmember Sieber,
Yes.
Councilmember Vanchery,
Yes.
Council President Scoba.
Yes, have a motion to open the meeting for public general matters?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Vanchery, second by Councilmember Hablitz. All those in favor of opening for general matters signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to that motion signify by saying nay. Motion carries. The floor is now open for general matters.
Luis Fernandez, 54 Harrison.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm the one that usually, every meeting, I come to you and I tell you how bad you people are doing. And I criticize everything that you guys do. You know that. But today I'm going to make an exception, and that is because I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen the mayor going through Jackson Park just about every day in the mud. He was there. He was talking to the residents, and it made me realize that, not everybody's bad. So my compliments to you. You did something good. That reminds me, years ago when I was selling real estate, I used to get into my office and my broker used to have a sign that says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And this week you show us, at least myself and a few other residents in town, that you do care for this township, and we appreciate it. All right, having said that, I just want to ask probably Mr. Campbell, how long are the containers going to be on the premises in Jackson Park? The reason why I ask is because even though I have minimal damage in the house, it is very hard for me to go up and down the stairs with one arm. So if I had a little bit of time, like in the past, when I remember your previous, I think he extended the period a little bit of time. So if I had a little bit of extra time, I could have, I like to do it myself. So I like to know if that can be extended a little bit. All right, thank you.
Before, I'm sorry, Mr. You can sit down, Mr. Fernandez. You can come up, sir. Mayor, the question was, how long the containers for the debris will be out there. So you want to elaborate a little bit more on that, please?
Sure. So Mr. Campbell and I have spoken about the garbage pickup. We are trying to get the dumpsters removed soon, but we will continue to do pickups of bulk items and garbage trucks. I understand there are still some people waiting for insurance adjusters to even appear now that have not been able to remove their items from their home yet. I understand that there's some people who are waiting for additional assistance to have items removed. So we will continue to pick up bulk items over the next couple of weeks. Yes, I understand where you're coming from. You're not alone in that. So we will continue to make sure that those bulk items are picked up and removed. And in response to your first comment, I will honestly and sincerely say that I do appreciate the kind words. I can tell you myself and this council, we do truly care. Sometimes it takes a disaster to see it, and unfortunately, but we do truly care for this town. And again, whatever assistance we can be, please let us know.
Sir, the floor is yours. Name and address.
Good evening. My name is Danny Isku from 76 William Street,
Can you spell your last name, sir?
ISKU.
Thank you.
I would like to say an observation I made while walking my dog down the street. The homes that were elevated hardly had any personal property damage in front of them. But the homes that were not elevated had a lot of personal property damage. Why? The solution to homes flooding, flood-prone homes, is to elevate them. Why is so much money being wasted on research and this and that instead of helping homeowners have their homes elevated so it would resolve their flooding problem? That is one question.
You raise a wonderful observation about seeing those homes that are elevated that didn't have much damage. Councilman Kwadi, would you like to speak a little bit about the FEMA programs, about the percentage? Just explain that.
Yeah, so, this flood was an education for me as well. I learned a lot about this town. I'll talk about it in my comments, most of it positive. But there is an ordinance in place that says that if you have suffered 51% damage to your home in a flooding event, or have suffered 25% damage within the last 10 years, then if that 25 plus whatever you're sustained this time adds up to 51%, that we cannot issue permits to you unless you elevate your home. So my feeling is that is about the extent of what we can do to encourage people to elevate their homes. Now, if there are FEMA programs that come along and offer assistance, my personal opinion, I have not discussed this with the mayor or any other council members, my personal opinion, or Mr. Kuchia, who would obviously have to weigh in on this, would be that we should do whatever we could to assist people in being able to elevate their homes. I am a big proponent of elevating homes, and I am adamantly opposed to buyouts. I don't think they benefit the municipality. I don't think they benefit the resident. I don't think they benefit the people who are left in the neighborhood. But I saw right down the street from Mr. Fernandez's house, a home that was elevated that suffered no damage. And I will do anything that I can to convince anyone, whether it be a member of FEMA, if they want to listen to me, or a resident who is open to the discussion, that elevating your home in Little Falls, if you are in a flood-prone zone, is infinitely more beneficial than any of the alternatives.
That's what I feel. And I don't know like how many tens and hundreds of millions of dollars were spent on research and dredging the river, which never happened, and all kind of things. That's a lot of waste and abuse that a lot of homeowners could have been saved from all this, trouble of being flooded and their property damaged.
Mayor, you'd like to comment on?
Sure. Yeah. So yes, you make a good observation in that you're right. The homes that were elevated did sustain little to no damage as a general rule. The township right now is not currently enrolled in any elevation programs or demolition programs that have been made available in the past. There have been no talks from FEMA of offering any even buyouts to the area around the Passaic River and William Street area where you reside at this time. There have been some conversations. Again, I don't know how serious about the potential for elevations in the Jackson Park area of town, since they've been hit 2 times in 3 years now. Again, I don't know how serious that conversation is from the federal government, because it does these programs do require federal funds. To the average cost to elevate a home, I believe, is somewhere around $120,000. So it is a substantial cost. It is not something that the township can do on its own. If there's going to be elevations, which again, I do encourage elevations over any of the other options, it is something that we need the support of our federal partners to do. We do administer the program on our side. It becomes a lot of administrative work locally, but the funding needs to come from the federal government. And right now, again, I don't know that there's a program that we may be eligible for in order to do that, but I do certainly hear where you're coming from.
So someone needs to tell FEMA, the solution, because it doesn't seem like they care. And they could have spared a lot of people a lot of headaches.
Yeah.
The other thing is the 25% increase year after year. That 25% increase year after year compounds, and it's bigger and bigger increase year after year until I'm bankrupt or homeless. Why am I continuing to get a 25% increase every year on top of the previous year's 25%, whatever increases, and they're not helping with solving the problem?
You're right. And something I will tell you, one thing I am proud of this township for is we have a CRS rating that gives our homeowners that are required to have flood insurance a 25% discount. And this year we went from a 20 to 25% discount, which is one of the highest ratings east of the Mississippi. I will say, I've heard from countless people that even with the additional 5% off this year, that what they are paying is still more than it was the prior year. So people got an additional discount and still saw an increase in their flood insurance. And you're right, it's very frustrating that these costs continue to go up and that the help that you may need is not necessarily made available when you need it. And I absolutely feel your pain in that. It is incredibly frustrating to hear that these raises in the cost of flood insurance continue to skyrocket year after year after year. And that when we do need the assistance, and we do need FEMA to step up and provide us this assistance, they have largely failed to do so. I'm hoping this year will be a different story. I'm hoping that this storm will bring a different attitude from our federal partners in helping the residents of Little Falls, whether it be elevations, whether it be rebuilding, whatever it may be. But I certainly sympathize with your situation and what happened to you over there, because it is horrible. It was hard to see. It was absolutely gut-wrenching. And I'm sorry you went through that.
Thank you, sir. Do you have any other questions?
It's like, when they send the yearly renewal, right, FEMA, they have on there, you're eligible for mitigation, whatever it is. When I called them and asked them, okay, what am I eligible? They give me the runaround. Oh, talk to your manager, city flood manager or whoever, right? So, I asked the city, oh, there's no federal programs. So I'm getting this like runaround. Meanwhile, I got to keep paying these higher and higher premiums. And it's very frustrating and aggravating. And I'm very upset. I can't take it anymore. They better, stop increasing my premiums or raise my house. One of the two, because I'm fed up with it.
Sir, you said you're getting to run around with the city. You want to elaborate with that? I don't understand what that means.
Well, I spoke one time to the gentleman here, and he told me I knew I was moving in flood zone, but where else am I going to live that I could afford to live? He said, well, you're living above your means, and if you can't afford a place in a flood zone, where else are you going to afford a place, I just want my little piece of apple pie, just have my home and, live comfortably. And I can't afford, these expensive price homes, whatever, regularly priced homes, And that's like the perfect home for me. It has everything, we ever wanted, but it's in a flood zone. And the solution is to elevate it and, I would be happy with my little piece of the pie right there, And also another thing, there's no kind of benefits for veterans as far as like flood premiums or getting a break here and there, okay? I'm a veteran and I can't even get a break on my flood insurance premium, okay? It keeps going up hundreds and hundreds of dollars a year. And I'm on Social Security and VA disability. And my benefits don't go up hundreds and hundreds of dollars a year. Sooner or later, these increases are just gonna bankrupt me and I'm gonna have to like lose my house, and be homeless or something, Is that the intent of FEMA with their price increases, the 25% every year, whatever, their increases are? What am I supposed to do? I can't keep up with those increases.
So you recognize this governing body doesn't set the increases for the FEMA flood. We hear what you're saying, but we have no control over the rates of what those flood insurance rates are.
I don't know.
Well, thank you for coming in this evening.
I guess I'm just gonna be homeless in another year if they keep increasing my premiums like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Laura still-
Excuse me, is there-
Mr. Fernandez, hold on a second. Do you have a comment?
Is there any additional information or support that our resident could possibly receive going to the Civic Center and speaking to some personnel there?
Yeah, I would absolutely encourage him to go there. There might be some information. Again, I hope FEMA will offer additional, elevations to the residents of this town that need it. But without their assistance and the federal government providing that assistance, like I said, the municipality is somewhat handcuffed in that regard. But yes, appealing there to get some assistance, at least initially. And again, hopefully in the long haul, some elevations townwide. Again, I would certainly encourage you to go there.
Right. I mean, I would just encourage you to go to the Civic Center. I could at least speak for myself in that they're probably better equipped to answer something than I am personally here. And so at least maybe you can find some additional information out and seek some advice and gain some more knowledge for yourself, because we honor that you're a resident and we, our hearts are out to you for anything that you've suffered. And so we want to at least help and direct you to the most information that you can possibly get. So thank you very much for coming.
Mr. Kusia, is there anyone that on Zoom would like to have the floor? Mrs. Quaddy, Mr. Fernandez, bear with us. Mrs. Quaddy, you have the floor.
Thank you. Ann Kawadi, Little Falls Library Board of Trustees President. I would like to thank Mr. Ronnie Campbell, as well as the mayor. During the Henri storm, the library did suffer some water damage downstairs in the basement. We had Mr. Campbell come out and he addressed the issue within 12 hours. And it really prevented the library for having a significant damage due to the Ida storm. So I just wanted to thank Mr. Campbell and the mayor for acting on that so quickly. It is very much appreciated. And then just one final other thing, Mayor, as you indicated with the email blast, one of the things that the library will do starting tomorrow is we'll put an announcement on our digital sign outside, as well as provide information to each of the patrons when they check out books with detailed instructions on how to sign up for that email blast. And we'll try to start that this week.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Quaddy, for your comments.
And then just, I'm sorry, one last thing. And I also do want to thank the mayor for recognizing the library card sign up month. We really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. My honor.
Councilman Quaddy, you want to have the
No,
floor?
I knew Mrs. Kawadi wanted to mention that and I was just going to remind her. So
Okay.
thank you.
For the record, Mr. and Mrs. Quaddy are married.
And we live at 45 Morningside, sir.
Council President, Can I just add
Councilmember
something?
Vanchery before Mr. Fernandez.
Yeah, to what
He's
Mrs.
got a-
Kwati just said, I got a text from Mr. Pace and he said we can put up the information about the email blast on the marquee as well. So,
That's great. So we're using our electrical signs. in a good
yes,
way.
It
absolutely.
used to be there. I'm
Yeah,
surprised
I
it's not there any longer.
Let's,
I'll make sure it goes
let's have
back.
one meeting. Mr. Fernandez?
Regarding FEMA and all these government funded institutions, I guess. FEMA, from what I understand, only covers up to the maximum that you can insure a house in the state of New Jersey is $250,000, from what I understand. They don't cover the whole amount.
I will tell you, the intricacies of FEMA, I'm not very well of all of the ins and
That's
outs.
what I was led to believe years ago when I bought what I bought now. I ended up not getting insurance, I don't have mortgage, but that's what I was led to believe. That's number one. And going back to the conversation that you and I had on Harrison Street, that we hope that the government, comes up big and helps the residents of Little Falls. I must say that now is the time to make as much noise as possible. Whether it's calling the Congresswoman, whether it's calling the Pope, whether it's closing Route 46 and setting those, cars on fire, whatever gets the attention of the government. All I know is that Little Falls has been having this problem for 25 years. Enough is enough. One person died on Harrison years back, and I think you just mentioned that the other one is having difficulties as well. So how many people need to die in Little Falls for the government to do anything? And the funny thing is that, and I feel sorry for this gentleman, because like he said, he's a vet. And every time I hear that the government is helping these illegal immigrants crossing the border and giving them thousands and thousands of dollars, and we don't take care of our own people that went to war to protect this nation, should be ahead of anybody else. If there's any money left over, I agree, help somebody else. But the American people should be put in front of everybody. I just get very upset when I see all these loans and money that is being given to Afghanistan, to Poland, for what? I feel that the residents, the taxpayers of this nation should have something to say and tell these politicians, look, charity starts at home. Take care of our own people, the homeless, the vets. Take care of our needs first, and then we'll worry about everybody else. These politicians, to me, they are the dirtbags of the dirtbags, and it cannot be tolerated. But anyway, that was my 2 cents.
Well, thank you, Mr. Fernandez. The PECMAN has been in a dialogue with the Congress, and the mayor did meet with the Congresswoman, as you probably know, and he'll talk about that. So these discussions about what can be done with the PECMAN have been talked about many, many times. We're definitely getting closer, but I do also want to say, it wasn't the PECMAN that the residents of Little Falls worried about, right? It was the Passaic River. I mean, I've been here 32 years, and I think I heard about the PECMAN now twice in the past 3 years. Usually the PECMAN wasn't the concern, right? It was left aside. So things have changed a lot in the past 4 years or 3 years. The brook behind my house, and I live on a hill, it's usually a trickling stream. The night of the storm, it was a raging semi-river. And that was just a small brook. So we definitely need to do everything possible to protect our residents' safety. And I think the mayor will kind of talk about this. There could be possible some FEMA money where we could do bank stabilization. Mayor, do you have any word from the Congresswoman?
Sure, yeah, I mean, we are on the brink of a solution. Unfortunately, the PECMAN flood tunnel was not included in the president's budget this year, but it was submitted through our congressional offices, for federal funding. And like I said, we're on the brink of a solution for the PECMAN River because there's a more definite and easier answer. that solution for us in Little Falls, while it protects a very good chunk of town in the Jackson Park area, Hobson Ave is not going to be necessarily addressed by the flood tunnel, with the exception of the bank stabilization that we're hoping to have happen upstream, which would prevent trees from being undermined. The damming of the East Main Street Bridge, which was dammed up by about 70% with trees and branches and bushes and debris, that caused the water to be ejected and head out towards down Hobson Ave. But there's other sections of town that are still affected by the Peckman, whether it be Reiner's Road, whether it be Francisco Ave. There are other areas of town that continue to have, more on-street type of flooding, down by the Van Pelt area, down by the Donato Drive area. There's a number of areas of town that, there certainly are issues. But I will say, with this storm in particular, again, with reports of between 8, 9, 10, and 11 inches of rain in some spots, there is nowhere in the state of New Jersey where the infrastructure is designed to handle 11 inches of water in the period of time that we had it come down. That's not to say, that I don't feel absolutely horrible for everybody that suffered some loss, but the infrastructure in the state is just not built for that. And again, this was, I would love to say this is the 1% storm, that 100-year storm. But unfortunately, we've been seeing bigger storms. It seems like a lot more frequently lately than we ever have in the past. And it's definitely a concern. But again, for the Jackson Park area of town, I think there's a solution on the horizon. With the Passaic River, fortunately, and knock on wood, you're right, Council President, it hasn't been the issue for us that it once was. But the funding to even study the Passaic River has been through a congressional, or I think actually through the Senate, they've been ordered to stop even funding studies for the Passaic River. So in order for even a new study to occur on the Passaic River, the United States Senate needs to permit and approve additional funding for studies on the Passaic River. So that is one that, again, it's still a concern. I lost sleep over the Passaic River for a couple of days through this storm. The number of hours that we spent in this very room having emergency management meetings, early in the morning to late at night. I wish there was an easy solution for all of it. But unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be an easy one, but there seems to be one on the horizon for at least a good chunk of town with the Peckman River. And I really, really hope that this will be put through and that we will get the bank stabilization and that we will see this flood tunnel that will help save so many homes in town. Again, it's not a town-wide blanket solution, but it is one step in the right direction, and I'm hopeful that we will be able to get there very soon.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there anyone else who would like to speak, Mr. Kusia, on Zoom? Anyone else in the audience who would like to have the podium? Have a motion to close the public for the public portion comment?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Quattie.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Havelitz. All those in favor of closing to the public comment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Mayor, we have 1, 2, and 3, and 4, resolution awarding contract for Second Avenue, resolution authorizing change of order for the improvement of Nickel John Avenue, resolution releasing performance bond for Palazone, and the emergency resolution. So Mayor.
Sure thing. I'm going to move through these relatively quickly now. The first is the resolution awarding the contract for Second Avenue sanitary sewer improvements. As many people know, PSE&G is part of their electric improvement project that connected the Total Borough substation to the Cedar Grove substation, tore up a whole lot of roadways in Little Falls. One of the bigger roadways they tore up was Second Ave from end to end, from Wilmore Road all the way into Cedar Grove. Before we repaved the roadway, we wanted to do our due diligence on the sanitary sewers in that area, because this is one of the older sewer systems that we have here in Little Falls. Some of them are approaching the 100-year plus mark as far as our sanitary sewers go. Upon inspection of the sanitary sewers in that area of town, we found that there are a number of issues along the roadway in our sanitary sewers along Second Ave. And before we repave the roadway, we want to make sure that all of these sanitary sewer upgrades and improvements are made, so that once we repair the road, these residents will have a new, fresh paved road, hopefully for a very long time before it needs to be reopened. Anything else, Mr. Campbell, that you'd like to add to that one?
Send out pricing for the catch tanks, the catch basins, and the manholes. Sent it out today. Just done, so I'll get back the number. I'll let you guys know.
Great. So as soon as we have some numbers on that, hopefully we'll be able to complete this project and get that roadway repaved.
Are there any questions regarding resolution 1? Resolution 2?
All right, number 2 on the list here is the resolution authorizing a change order for the improvements to Mickle John Ave project. Finally, a word that I like to see once in a while here is decreasing the contract price. And fortunately, the revised contract amount is now down to just over $102,000, which was a reduction of nearly $39,000. So I wish I saw more of these come across our desks here, but fortunately, we'll take them where we can get them. The Township will be saving almost $39,000 on this contract for Mickle John. So outstanding and very happy to see that. Any questions?
Number 3, Mayor?
All right, number 3, which will be Resolution C, is the resolution releasing the performance bond for Palazzone, 490 Main Street. And as we see occasionally, when projects are completed in town, who are required to have performance bonds, upon the completion of the project, the performance bonds are released, and that is simply what we are doing here.
Number 4?
All right, the last is the emergency resolution. This is actually something that I meant to touch upon in my initial comments. As we know, after these major flood events or major emergencies, the township incurs some funds and some expenses that we did not necessarily anticipate in our budget when the budget was created. We do not have an exact number yet of what the total cost of the town has been. In fact, we are still incurring some costs, whether it be overtime with police, with our DPW, who continue to break their backs on a daily basis, including later than normal and on weekends lately. So we have some additional costs that were not initially anticipated. At this time, I am asking that the council adopt a resolution for an emergency resolution that will allocate additional flood emergency costs of $150,000. Again, we hope to stay well under that number, but we're looking to fund $150,000 at this time. As everyone is aware, unfortunately, from 3 years ago, if we do not receive the federal reimbursement for these funds, the municipality will be required to fund this emergency appropriation in next year's budget. Again, we're all very hopeful that we will see the emergency funding come through from our federal partners, because Little Falls in this area desperately need it after this storm. So fingers crossed, we will receive reimbursement for this, and it will not have any impact on next year's budget.
Any questions on number 4? Thank you, Mayor. Have a motion, to approve A through E.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Vanchery.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Quaddi. Mrs. Kraus, please call the roll to approve resolutions A through E.
Councilmember Hablitz,
Yes.
Councilmember Kawadi,
Yes.
Councilmember Seaver,
Yes.
Councilmember Vanchery,
Yes.
Council President Scoba.
Yes. Can I have a motion to table ordinance 1417 until October 4th?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Vanchery.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Hablitz. Is that a roll call?
Yeah, we do have to hold the public hearing though.
But on October 4th? Oh, we still have to go through public hearing, right? Okay, let's go through public hearing. Okay, so public hearing on 1417.
So moved.
Second? Second by Councilmember Seaver, moved by Councilmember Quaddi. All those in favor of having the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to this motion signify by saying nay. Okay, now we can have the public hearing on 1417. Have a motion to close the public hearing on 1417?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Moved by Councilmember Vanchery, second by Councilmember Hablitz. All those in favor of closing the public hearing on 1417 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to that motion signify by saying nay. Motion carries. So can I have a motion to table the ordinance to October 4th?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Hablitz,
Second.
second by Councilmember Vanchery. All those in favor of tabling the ordinance to October 4th signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to that motion signify by saying nay. I apologize to the audience. I didn't follow protocol. My fault. Mrs. Kraus, please read ordinance 1424.
Second reading and public hearing of ordinance number 1424, an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Little Falls in the County of Passaic, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 11-8 and Chapter 11-9, hours of sale of alcoholic beverages.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to open to the public hearing on ordinance 1424?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Quattie,
Second.
second by Councilmember Vanchery. All those in favor to open to the public on 1424 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to this motion signify by saying nay. We are now open for 1424. Seeing no one come forward, have a motion to close the public hearing on 1424.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Quattie,
Second.
second by Councilmember Vanchery. All those in favor of closing to the public on 1424 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to that motion signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Can I have a motion to adopt ordinance 1424?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Vanchery, second by Councilmember Hablitz. Mrs. Kraus, please call the council roll to adopt 1424.
Councilmember Hablitz,
Yes.
Councilmember Quattie,
Yes.
Councilmember Seaver,
Yes.
Councilmember Vanchery,
Yes.
Council President Scoba.
Yes. Mrs. Kraus, at this time, please read ordinance 1425.
Introduction of ordinance number 1425, an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Little Falls in the County of Passaic, State of New Jersey, to amend and modify Chapter 33 Cannabis Regulation of the Code of the Township of Little Falls with a second reading and public hearing scheduled for October 4th, 2021.
Can I have a motion to introduce ordinance 1425?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Quattie, second by Councilmember Hablitz. Mrs. Kraus, call the roll to introduce is it 1425?
Yes.
Okay, 1425.
Councilmember Hablitz,
Yes.
Councilmember Quattie,
Yes.
Councilmember Seaver,
Yes.
Councilmember Vanchery,
Yes.
Council President Scoba.
Yes. Councilmember Hablitz?
Thank you, Council President. So I would just like to thank and acknowledge the mayor for recognizing Library Card Sign Up Month. As the mayor said, libraries are essential. Having a library card opens up a whole array of books, both online and at the library. The library's been at the farmer's market every other week this season, doing community outreach and signing up residents for library cards. So it's great to have them there. Speaking of the farmer's market, we are still going strong, and that's really thanks to our community. This weekend, Sunday, we had our second annual Green Fair. The Green Fair was on hiatus in 2020 due to COVID-19. However, this year it came back even stronger at the farmer's market. We had PSE&G there speaking about residential energy saving programs. We had rain barrels and composting. We had Schumacher Chevrolet there with their all-electric Chevy Bolt. We had a refillable bottles. She has refillable sustainable products that are in bottles that you can swap out. We had Passaic County there talking about bike trails. We had solar panels. So we really had a lot of people to speak to about living a greener life. As far as the market, it still is going strong until November 7th. On September 26th, we will have our fall alpaca day. If you've never been down to the market for alpaca day, it really is a lot of fun. The kids seem to love it and adults as well. On October 10th, we will have a children's craft to kick off the fall festival, which will take place in the afternoon at Wilmore Park. And on the October 31st, we will have trick or treating at the market. That's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Hablitz. Councilmember Quattie?
Thank you, Council President. I want to start with a couple of really positive things. The first being the Green Fair. It was something I was heavily involved in 2 years ago, and Councilwoman Hablitz sort of took it over when it became part of the Green Fair, and it was a terrific event. Speaking of great events, Councilman Vanchery did the 9/11 Memorial Service for the 20-year anniversary. I'm sure he's going to speak about that, but I want to congratulate him on a very successful event. Regarding the flooding, I know that a lot of the people up here on the dais, Councilwoman Seaver, Councilman Scoba, certainly Councilman Vanchery, suffered from this flood. I know the mayor's brother was impacted. I spent that evening when the rain was coming down trying to keep my neighbor's house dry because he was away and fighting water coming in with the shop vac. And so the impact of the flood this year was different for me personally than it ever has been in the past. I wasn't on the council in August of 2018. And I spent a lot of time in the areas that were affected by the flooding: Jackson Park, Reiners Road, Van Pelt, Donato, Hobson, Woodcliff Ave. I tried to speak to as many homeowners as I could, listen to their concerns, offer my assistance in trying to ease the impact of what happened on September 1st. Mr. Fernandez, I drove past your house several times because, I'm not trying to get credit here, but I wanted to know what your impact was, because I knew you would be honest with me. I was lucky enough to drive these areas again with Dan Janduso, he's our OEM coordinator, did an incredible job organizing the township's response to the flooding. I wrote these comments before the mayor spoke, so there's going to be a little bit of overlap, but I'd like a lot of what I'm going to say to come from me as well. I did join the mayor and Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill and Joe Hirsch from her staff, and we went out together and spoke to people who were impacted and went into their homes when they invited us to, and learned what happened to them, and learned how this storm and how these waters move through town, which is so important in trying to figure out how to mitigate things in the future. When FEMA came to town, I happened to be with James DiMaria, and we showed them the homes that we knew that were affected. We made sure none of them were missed, so that the residents of Little Falls might be eligible for federal assistance when the major disaster declaration was issued, which did not happen in 2018. It's incredible to have to say that we were lucky that other towns were impacted this year, because it raised the damage levels to the point where the federal government took notice, because they didn't in 2018, because the damage was so specific to our town. On Sunday, my fellow council members and I helped coordinate what must have been 100 volunteers from the We Love You Foundation. We made sure that residents who could use an extra set of hands, or 5 or 10, it seems sometimes there were that many people, to get the help they needed to clean their homes, to remove water and soak building materials from their homes. Some people had already done most of the work themselves by that time, but these volunteers went and helped them to move heavy appliances out of their homes when they couldn't remove them on their own. They did a great service for Little Falls, and we should thank them again. And I hope we never need them again. I spoke to Karen Singer, who was heroically rescued by her son and her husband. They chopped through the floor of her house to get her out of the basement when her foundation collapsed. And I told her that I was so glad that she was still part of our Little Falls family. And I feel that way about a lot of people who showed their true colors in the last couple of weeks. And I'm gonna list them because they deserve recognition. Our police department, led by Chief Post, and the fire department, led by Chief Altanji, who kept our residents safe, but also did what they could to try and mitigate the effects of the storm. Our DPW, led by Ron Campbell, is an incredible group of people. And if you haven't figured that out yet, then you're not paying attention to Little Falls. We are lucky to have Ron, who dealt with the Little Falls flooding through his whole career, and probably more so in the last 2 weeks than he ever wished he had to. And he lessened the impact, and he lessens the impacts of the storms when they're not happening by keeping our storm drains clear, maintaining our waterways the best they can. And as my wife talked about, he probably saved the floor of the library by taking a few minutes to just care before the storm happened and fill in a crack. And sometimes that's what it takes. And I appreciate you, Ron, and I know this town does as well. Dan Janduso, who I mentioned earlier, heads our OEM. He was an immeasurable asset to the township, and he is such a good man. And I hope that we have him in that position one way or another with the OEM for as long as we possibly can. James DeMarie and his team, who had the thankless job of assessing the damage to people's homes and speaking to them, that job is not one that I envy. And he went out and he did what he had to do to keep those residents safe, sometimes when they may not have even wanted to be kept safe. Joe Pamonti and Boswell Engineering is another asset to our community, and the knowledge and expertise in this area that he has was so valuable to us in the last 2 weeks. And I expect that he will be a bigger asset as we plan our long-term response to this storm. Mr. Cuccia who leads and coordinates all of these efforts with an unflappable calm and ensures that everyone is at their best. We cannot do anything in this town without him saying it's the right thing to do, and he does it so well, and so thank you. My fellow council members put forth a great effort. Each of us found our own ways to contribute because that's what we do. And we did what we could for the people as best we could, even though we were up against Mother Nature, and often she wins. And lastly, our mayor, it's cliche to say he worked tirelessly, but he did. There was more than one night where he told me how little sleep he had been getting, and I reminded him that he couldn't help anyone if he didn't take care of himself first. And he usually just ignored that comment and kept plowing forward, and our township is the better for it. The residents know how much he cares for them. Mr. Fernandez acknowledged it, which in itself is a feat, but I appreciate your comments. And so many others expressed their appreciation for everything that he is doing and the high level of care he has for them and the township as a whole. When you move to Little Falls, anyone, you are not just buying a home, you are buying into a culture and a community that takes care of each other. And I didn't grow up in this town. I grew up next door, but I love it here. And I hope I don't have to see what I saw again anytime soon or ever. But the community that was shown sure feels good when it's needed. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Council Member Kawadi. Council Member Seaver.
Thank you. Can I just say ditto to Councilman Kawadi?
You can repeat everything you said as well. That's up to you. You have the floor.
So I'll just move on to some additional information. So first off, we are bringing back our yearly event of our garage sale, which is this coming up Saturday, September 18th. There is still time to sign up. We do advertise the event. We do drop off a sign and pick the sign back up for your participation. Signups can be done through Community Pass, or you can find the link online at lfnj.com. You can also call the Recreation Center if you do need help with that. So again, another way of giving back to the community is not only by participating in the garage sale, but also by shopping the garage sale. So it helps the community find wares that they might need or continue to sell some of their belongings and use those proceeds to purchase items that they might need. So, believing in this community, giving back, the garage sale is just another way to continue to do that. So I do encourage everybody to sign up or participate and shop. And that there is an online list at lfnj.com for all participating households. And then secondary, we do have our 5K, our Run Little Falls 5K coming back again this year, and that will be Sunday, October 3rd. So again, some time to sign up. Unfortunately, as we know, there has been some damage throughout towns and through neighboring towns. One of the damaged properties is actually our Passaic Valley High School track. And so the Run Little Falls actually starts and ends at our Passaic Valley track. Unfortunately, because of damage, we are not going to be able to hold it there this year. So we are in process of rerouting the 5K and getting it recertified through USATF. So right now we are anticipating that it will start and stop at our Little Falls Recreation Center. Ironically, it's going to be almost the same exact route from the high school as the recreation center. Instead of turning right out of the PV high school, you're just going to turn left out of the rec center. And then the rest of the route will be the same. So it's actually, ironically, a little exciting to actually just bring it home into our new recreation center and show off those facilities. So we're hoping to have that certified this week. But again, October 3rd is the date. And you can sign up for the run at runsignup.com. And again, we are still always looking for sponsors. So if you want to be a sponsor or a volunteer for the 5K, please feel free to reach out to myself. My email is available on our town website. That is it. Thank you.
Councilmember Vanchery.
Thanks, Council President. First, I want to start off, obviously my thoughts are with each of the residents that were impacted from the storm on September 1st. I feel your pain. If you don't know by now, my street, Hobson Avenue, 29 for the record, Mr. Fernandez, suffered damage extensively on several of our neighbors, including my very home. Right now, if you go inside my house, you will notice the foundation and no floors, no nothing. Walls are ripped up, unfortunately, because water came in through 3 directions of my house. So that was first time for us. It was something that, I hope I never have to experience again for sure, because the kids were home this time 3 years ago when we did have the storm. Luckily, my kids and my wife were away at the time, but my heart goes out to each and every one of the residents that were impacted. I finally, after digging out my situation the first couple of days, I was able to get out on Saturday. Ironically, I took my daughter to Jackson Park area, went to go see some friends and just kind of check on some residents, and then made some trips around some other streets around town. And, what I tried to explain to my daughter was, look, we got hit, but the Jackson Park residents really got hit. Having maybe 2 feet of water in your home compared to 8 is a big difference. And again, my heart goes out to each of them. And, when I did have a chance to on Saturday, I got together with our county commissioner, Sandy Lazara. She had called and said, I'm around. I want to check some things out. So with the commissioner, her and I walked my street, and I even took her along the Peckman River so she can see sort of what's in the back, of course, with the erosion. And then I took her to the bridge so she can see what was damaged underneath Main Street's bridge. And I took her to Reiner's Road so she can see some of the residents there and hear from them. The one thing I will say in that conversation with not only her, but also a member of the Army Corps of Engineers that stopped by, as the mayor alluded to, the culvert will really help Jackson Park. Culvert's not going to help Hobson Ave. Culvert's not going to help Reiner's Road and several other streets. I mean, the reality is, like I conveyed to Commissioner Lazara, the Main Street Bridge needs to go. It needs to be changed. The bridge on Francisco needs to go, needs to be changed. There needs to be bank stabilization. And, we can't keep waiting for studies. Like Bob Dombrowski's not here, but Bob always says, you think it was 6 the first time there was a study done, and he's in his late 50s. So there's been a lot of studies, but all talk, no action. And it's about time that we look at what we can do now versus waiting for some support that could come 2-3 years down the road. The other thing I do think we need to do in talking to Commissioner Lazara is, pull all those resources. Like Mr. Fernandez, like you said before, we have Congresswoman Cheryl, we have Senator Corrado, we have our 2 assemblymen that are willing to help. We have our county commissioners. We need to, get them together, as well as our partnering towns like Woodland Park and Totowa. We have this regional flood board where we can, pull those 3 towns together. The other thing too, we need to do is have a conversation with Essex County. We need to go see Joe Dean, his people, because, Mr. Campbell and I, I think we talked the last 2 weeks more than we talked to our wives, going back and forth with everything. But, if you look at right now where the Peckman is on our end, it's been cleaned up extensively. But if you drive further up Cedar Grove Road, if you're heading towards Pompton Avenue, you see a lot of trees in there in a Cedar Grove property. And that's frustrating, because what's going to happen is, guess where those trees are going to end up? Under the Francisco Bridge and under the Main Street Bridge. Because, we're at the point now, and I've talked about this to my colleagues here and the mayor as well, and Mr. Campbell, every time it rains, it puts a lot of people on edge. Whether it's my street, it's Jackson Park, it's Reiner's Road. People are constantly walking down to check out the Peckman. I remember about last month when we had that heavy rainstorm. I was sitting out there with Mr. Janduso and Chief Post on a Sunday afternoon. We were watching the flow of the Peckman River. That can't continue to happen. We need to really finally say, okay, let's roll up our sleeves and let's get something done. I think we're all tired of studies. We can have studies until we're blue in the face. That's not going to do anything. We need to come up with a plan. We need to get all these players involved that want to help. And it's like the reason why we have congressmen, we have senators, we have assembly, we have commissioners. We need to, maximize those resources the best we can to get things done, because it's frustrating. I don't want to go through it again, believe me. And I know the resident that was in the back that talked about William Street was impacted. I can tell you, when the FEMA folks came around, they had sent up a sort of satellite office on our street. And we were talking to them, as well as some folks at the Civic Center. And a lot of my neighbors, as well as folks on Reiner's Road, want to know if there is elevation. Is that a possibility? Because, and if there's going to be some support, because right now where I'm looking at my house, I'm probably going to have to elevate it. If I want to stay where I am right now, I have to get it elevated, because I don't want to go through this again. I mean, yeah, you got to get all new stuff, but I want to have to do that the next time a storm comes, because that's a trend that a lot of us unfortunately have experienced, especially over the last 3 years. I can tell you, on my hand, I can name a bunch of residents that 3 years ago just redid their house and now it's all gone and they're starting over from square one. So it's definitely frustrating. You could hear it in my voice. And I think, from talking to people over the last 2 weeks as well and hearing, what they were going through, look, we're Little Falls, we're strong, but we also need some help. Yeah, and it's about time, we call on all of our elected officials to really help us. And we need to reach out to other counties as well to make sure they're on board, because a lot of these problems too are not just coming from Little Falls, they're coming from other towns. And how do we get in a better place where, every time it rains, we don't have that cringe sort of in our stomach that says, oh no, are we going to get flooded again? Because I can tell you countlessly, this phone goes off, whether it's my neighbors or other residents. What's up with the Peckman? And how many times I talked to the mayor, Mr. Janduso, Mr. Campbell, like, how are we doing right now? So that's something that, I'm calling on, Mayor, I know you're working on everything, but, it's something we definitely need to do with the Regional Flood Board and just talking to our other, colleagues. It doesn't matter what side of the, aisle you're on. It's just, I think we all need to work together to come up with a solution and take action. No more studies, no more excuses like, hey, it'll happen at this point. I want to make sure things are done before my kids go to college, because I don't want to have to wait a number of years. I mean, you hear it in my voice. Anyway, there's a couple of things I do want to do. I want to acknowledge the mayor. Mayor was great. I mean, mayor was constantly updating us and checking on things. After that storm hit on Wednesday, 1 o'clock in the morning, he made his way over to check up on to see how everybody was doing on my block. He was out there. Mr. Campbell was there. Mr. Stell was out there. Mr. Janduso, constantly checking up, stopping by, meeting with residents. Was a text, a phone call. How you doing? You okay? This and that. And even calling him to see how you were doing. So Mayor, thank you for everything you do, because it's greatly appreciated by every one of the residents in this town. We know you care and you love this town. So thank you for everything that you do. To the Little Falls Police Department, Chief Post and his staff were amazing. Constantly in contact with the chief, letting us know what's going on, because that night on our street, we had a raging river and there was a lot of people that were scared and wanted to get out. And Chief Post made it clear it was too dangerous to stay in place. And if there was an emergency, please to call. Just grateful for all the work that he's done. Same thing with Little Falls Fire Department and Chief Altunji and his team. They were on hand if needed. If people needed to be rescued, they were ready to go in. So grateful for having two of the best departments in town. And as I said on Saturday at our 9/11 service, if you don't know by now, and I know Mr. Quaddy stole my thunder with that line, but we do have the best DPW department led by Mr. Campbell. These guys are amazing. That night, before the storm even started, I came over to help some neighbors with some sandbags. All the guys were in the shop ready to go. They knew it was going to be a long night, but they weren't going to go home. They were here. And the next day they were out there. And then day after that, they were constantly 6 a.m. You would see them on our street picking up debris. You can't ask for a better team than we have the DPW. So I'm grateful for everything that Mr. Campbell and your team do. OEM, Mr. Janduso, Danny, I'll say, Danny is one of the best. He's on top of things. I was away when the storm happened, I was away. And I called Mr. Janduso the night before and I said, Dan, should I come back? Because I was leaving Wednesday. And he said, just come back. We want to make sure you're here. And I just appreciate all his guidance throughout this whole thing, helping out residents that have had a ton of questions. To the CERT team as well for being involved. Mr. DiMaria, if you don't know Mr. DiMaria, he's been out there too since the very next day. He's been helpful, just giving residents information that they need. And, as Mr. Quaddy alluded to, he's got the tough conversation to have, and he wasn't welcomed with open arms at times, but, he's trying to do his job and help people and point them in the right direction. So grateful for everything that you do. And I just want to also thank a lot of the residents as well. There was countless people who stepped up that weren't impacted, that showed up at people's doors with a broom, with a shovel, gloves ready to pick up, or brought food over, or picked up supplies. There were countless people who just stepped up because that's what we do. Again, we're Little Falls strong. People came together, and that's what you want to see. And, as we mentioned with the We Love You folks that came through a couple of weeks ago, they did a tremendous service for so many people. They ended up on my street helping people out, and some of my neighbors saw it and said, hey, can you help us out as well? They were great. And I also got to mention the Little Falls Girl Scouts. One of my neighbors, unfortunately, had to wait to do any work because of the adjuster, and the We Love You Foundation, couldn't come the next day. I called the head of the Girl Scouts, and they had a group and their parents there within a few hours helping one of my residents clean out. So grateful for that. Same thing happened a few days ago where a resident had reached out because the We Love You folks weren't available and some of the Girl Scouts weren't available. Is there anybody that can help? Reached out to a friend in town, and she was able to organize a group from her church in Wayne. And guess what? They went to that resident's home and helped her. no questions asked. I mean, that's the great thing about this town. People step up in these situations and, we continue to love everyone for that. We're all here for a reason. We love this town. We want it to succeed. So just knowing that there's so many great things that happen from a terrible day, is very rewarding. So I appreciate that. And there's a few other things I just want to go through. I just want to thank everyone too. This weekend, we had the 20th anniversary of the events that took place on September 11th. It was a beautiful day like it was 20 years ago. And it was nice to see the community come together. We had a wonderful program put in place. And I was very grateful too that FTNY firefighter and former Little Falls resident Robert Cordes, his family was there once again, and his mother was up from Florida and was able to be a part of the ceremony. And she even got up to say a few words at the end. It was just a nice way to honor not only his memory as well as Linda Rosenbaum and so many others that passed away 20 years ago. So, thank you to everyone that was a part of that event that made that happen. There's a couple other things I do want to mention. If I don't, I'll get some emails about it. This past weekend, there was a few other activities that kicked off, and just want to say good luck to the Little Falls football and cheer program. They had their pep rally on Friday. No bonfire because with the turf this year, but they had a beautiful pep rally. The mayor and I were able to attend. It was a nice way to kick off their season that starts this week. And then over the weekend as well, several of us were at the field once again to kick off the Little Falls soccer season. Kudos to Mayor Damiano. He made some good saves while having the opening kicks take place. I don't know if his knees are still bothering him from all the hits to there with the soccer ball, but the mayor was there, and it's good to see his kids sign up as well playing this year. But good luck to all those. I did get an email this morning from some of the members of the Little Falls PBA. They just wanted to remind everyone that their 5th annual Oktoberfest is taking place on Saturday, October 2nd. It's going to be at the parking lot on Union at Walnut, where they typically have it. It's a mix of fun and entertainment for kids and adults. There'll be, of course, the adult beverages. There'll be entertainment for the kids, and more importantly, food trucks. So make sure everyone is there. That's it for me. Again, my heart goes out to everyone that was impacted. We'll get through this, and hopefully now we can really put our foot down on the gas and get things done sooner rather than later so that we can avoid this going forward. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Councilmember Vanchery. Mayor, can you talk about what is going on at the Peckman at the current time with the apparatuses in the Peckman, removing tree stumps? And then also with the opening of schools, to remind people to be safe. I know, Mayor, if you would talk about how the township is doing with COVID with the opening of schools, if there's any new information you can give the council. Thank you.
Sure. So with respect to the Peckman River, yes, we do have 2 crews in the river. We had 1 cruise initially in the river cleaning around the areas of the bridges and all the blockages. As I indicated a little earlier, the East Main Street Bridge was somewhere between 50 and 70% dammed up during the storm. And there were also some trees and debris down at the Francisco Avenue Bridge. Mr. Campbell was very quick in calling 2 separate companies, one to remove the debris from the bridges, another to get into the river to begin removing the shoals and moving larger rocks and items to the sides for some additional bank stabilization. At least that's the hopes with where they're placing them. The county is going to be coming in, adding some called riprap. Is that the name of the rock and the stone? And they're going to be using some larger riprap in the areas that had some erosion in order to try to create some additional bank stabilization. Hopefully they will help with some future rains and keeping the river running cleaner. So some assistance from the county there is very much appreciated. As far as the schools, well, let me just finish by saying that they will continue to probably be in the river for the next couple weeks.
Couple weeks, yep.
All right, next couple weeks, continuing to remove the shoals and debris, but hopefully this will continue to assist in keeping the river clear and clean for future rainfalls. With respect to the schools have been doing an outstanding job this year with having all of the students back in. But having all of the students back in presents an issue with vehicles and traffic. To compound that issue, the busing company that the schools outsource their busing to is not even offering busing to those, I think they call it the subscription busing for those who would otherwise not qualify for the free busing living over 2 miles. The busing company is not even allowing for subscription busing for those that are within the 2 miles. So the number of vehicles that we see diverging on our schools each morning, both for drop-off time and pickup time, is compounded by a number of things, especially, again, the fact that there's no subscription busing even available to people who might otherwise be sending their children and the young students to school on buses. All I can ask for on behalf of the schools is everybody's patience in the pickups and drop-offs, and just be safe in doing so. There are a lot of kids and a lot of parents walking in the areas of the schools. Please just be safe. Shaving 3 seconds off your ride is not worth, God forbid, risking an injury or worse to someone, or especially a student here in town. So please be safe in your pickups and drop-offs with our schools. Please be patient. I know the schools are working the best they can to keep it as organized as possible. I know our police department is facilitating all of the drop-offs and all the pickups every single day at all of our schools. So again, your patience in that regard is appreciated.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I have a motion to open the meeting to public comment for agenda items?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Habib, second by Councilmember Vanchery. All those in favor to open the meeting to agenda items only signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to this motion signify by saying nay. Mrs. Kraus?
Anyone wishing to address the Township Council may do so through the Council President. Please give your name and address for the record. Comments are to be limited to 3 minutes. However, if appropriate, you may be granted additional time in the sole discretion of the Council President. Members of the public who have joined the meeting virtually and desire to provide comment shall raise their virtual hand in the Zoom application. The meeting moderator will cue the members of the public that wish to provide comment, and the Council President will recognize them in order. Members of the public who have joined the meeting by calling in must press *6 to mute and unmute themselves and *9 to raise their hand. Members of the public who have joined the meeting via the Zoom application must click the reactions icon and then the raise hand icon. Please give your name and address for the record. Once the process is complete, we will return to the regular order of business.
Thank you. The floor is open.
Luis Fernandez, 54 Harris.
Yeah, Mr. Fernandez, just say no for the future. If you get up again, you could just say your name. Okay.
Just in case one day I forget.
Okay, well taken. Go ahead.
This is in reference to ordinance 1425. From what the mayor explained before, isn't that basically ordinance 1416, but at a lower scale? No?
No,
One
so
that
that-
was rejected a couple of months ago or a month ago. Isn't that basically the same thing?
No, because this ordinance, so this is an ordinance that needed to be passed regardless of where we permitted or prohibited the 5 licenses that we allowed in town. This ordinance, again, it was adopted almost, in kind. Recently, there have been, the only revisions have been now allowing micro businesses and not limiting the number of 2 licenses of each type of license in town.
Let me ask you point blank. Is Patterson Avenue back on the list for this thing, for ordinance 1425?
So short answer, no. And I will specifically bring your attention to the section of it that specifies, bear with me here as sometimes it's easier to have things on paper. So it specifies that the Municipal Council of the Township of Little Falls adopted ordinance 1420 on August 9th, 2021, which included certain provisions regarding the regulations and enforcement of rules related to cannabis, which are now part of the code of the Township of Little Falls under Chapter 33. It then goes on to read that the Cannabis Regulatory Commission, under its rulemaking authority, promulgated on August 19th, 2021, regulations regarding cannabis, which is why I said we were ahead of the regulations and rules coming out by about 10 days when we adopted it. So at the time, we were unaware of what some of the nuances of the regulation would be. We have since learned them initially. And let me go on to then further indicate here that it specifically says that permitted locations of cannabis establishments, including cannabis micro businesses, are set forth in ordinance 1415, and we are eliminating 1416 from this because 1416 was never adopted. It then goes on to say that no cannabis establishment can be located in any other zone than that listed and amended in Chapter 280.
All right,
So-
basically, Basically, this applies only to Route 46.
To 1415, which was specifically the B2 zone, the business district along the Route 46 corridor.
All right, thank you.
Are your questions answered, Mr. Fernandez? Okay. Mr. Kusia, anyone from the Zoom? Okay. The floor is open, sir. Can you hear us? Is that Mr. Lemanowitz you said?
Yes, good evening, everyone. I just want to extend my, explain why I'm not there, because I normally would be there in an in-person meeting. However, as Ida left, COVID came back to my house. So my daughter came down with symptoms. She was already vaccinated. She was fairly careful, as far as I know, but rather than expose people and risk somebody else getting a crossover, you know, I spoke to Mr. Kuchid over a couple of days ago, and we decided it'd be best that I attend this one remotely, but I'll see you next time.
Well, thank you. We wish the best to yourself and your family and be safe. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Lemanowitz. Is there anyone else, Mr. Kusia? Before I close, I just want to thank Mr. Campbell, Mr. Friend, Mrs. Kraus, Mr. Kusia, and Nelson for helping navigate through this meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? I'm sorry, can I have a motion to close the public comment?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Vanchery,
Second.
second by Councilmember Quadri. All those in favor of closing the public comment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to that motion signify by saying nay. Can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Seaver,
Second.
second by Councilmember Quadri. All those in favor of adjourning this meeting, September 13, 2021, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. This meeting is now closed.